Hello, everyone, and welcome back. It's day two. Our first session today is actually a little bit different than what we had on the schedule. Me and Brian are going to be here for the next 30 minutes or so talking about virtual events, more specifically, growing MRRs through productized services and virtual events, which is something that Brian, our coordinator for this event, knows quite a decent amount about. So, I encourage you to throw your questions into the chat. This is going to be um, one part interview, one part Q&A. So any questions that you have about how you want to use productized services or virtual events as part of your MRR strategy, definitely make sure to add those questions to the chat. I'll get us started with some questions for Brian. First of all, hi, Brian. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Good to see you. I have to put my monitor in to make sure that the audience can hear me. But back to you.
Awesome. Cool. Let's just kind of dive right in. Can you talk to us a little bit about growing MRRs through productized services? How do events like this and the kind of experience that you've had, how does all of that fit together? How do they play together? Give us kind of a little starting point for this conversation.
Perfect. Yeah, I'd be glad to. Uh, let's talk about first productized services as a subject
Mhm.
and what those are. For anyone who's unfamiliar with that, it's a really slick way of saying take what you're already doing, bundle it up into a tight package that you can then resell over and over again.
Mhm.
A maintenance plan for agencies is a really good example of a productized service. You're providing maintenance for your clients, hopefully, and you maintain a long-term relationship with them. All right, WP Buffs is built entirely out of productizing maintenance plans and doing those really well.
Mm.
Independent agency owners, independent developers can capitalize this on this as well. But there are lots of other things that most people are probably doing in their business that they could take and resell either on a monthly basis or just even just as a product. So you just know when a client asks, "Hey, what's this?" And he's like, "Oh, well, that's this thing that we do, and it costs this much, and I'd be glad to provide that to you."
Mhm.
And then at the opposite end of the spectrum, you turn that into just a full service membership or subscription based service. Um, and a really good example of this, Brian Castle, who created Theme Jam in the WordPress space and then
Mm.
spun that into Restaurant Jam and eventually spun out and did completely other things, offering basically content subscription services. And now he's got a really cool product called Process Kit, where you can sign up and define all the processes that you're doing in your business and then assign those processes to people. And it's kind of like a hybrid between like the operation manual for what your business is and the project management interface for getting those things done. It's pretty
Mhm.
slick. Um, so there's the context of him. When he moved into Restaurant Jam, he was taking
Mhm.
his theme business and making it for clients to restaurants specifically to be like, here, just come and sign up for your own website, and we'll take care of everything you need. Just fill in all of the forms. And what he soon realized is that most restaurant owners don't also want to be webmasters, so they're not signing up, they're not taking advantage of it. And if they do
Mhm.
sign up, therefore they churn out. And he started offering like full service onboarding. Like you just tell us the stuff, we'll make the website and get it ready for you. And they
Mhm.
loved that. And he did that again and again and again. And what resonated with me, this was just like a throwaway story when I was interviewing him some time ago. I'm like, hang on, you stumbled onto exactly the problem that so many people overlook trying to solve when they're building these platforms, which is you can
Mhm.
build a tool just for you and then sell that, or rather, sell the services that are made possible through the tool. So he still had to do all of the outreach and maintain all of the client relationships with those restaurant businesses, but his ability to deploy a brand new restaurant website could be done in, say, hours instead of weeks because he had
Right.
templates, because he had everything put together. And for those of you who are running your own businesses, I encourage you to think about the kinds of clients you're already serving and how you
Mm.
might be able to streamline what you're doing to serve them. What sort of new processes could you introduce And we'll hear more about that later today. Angelica's going to talk a lot about systems. Maddie's going to talk about how she's made this transition from freelancer to team to grow her MRR. Um, so pay attention to those stories, but start thinking now about like what are the things in your business that you're doing that you can say like I do this a lot. Maybe if I had a
Mhm.
process for this, I could do it faster, or someone else could do it, or I could build a tool that does it. And so I'm still offering the same service to all of my clients, but now it's easier for me to do.
Mhm.
And uh, I'll pause here in case you want to interject because I've been talking for a couple of minutes. But then on the virtual events side of things is
Mhm.
essentially how I've been productizing what I do to
Mhm.
build out services for clients and generate recurring revenue.
That's awesome. I love that. So thinking about a lot of the people here watching probably maybe have some MRR services already or have some MRR systems already, and maybe they want to move into virtual events, offering that as a managed recurring revenue sort of service. How, I guess my first question is, if they're not willing to, if they're not interested in doing, an event like this, right?
Right.
A big sort of conference sort of event, what other sort of events do you feel like people can take a look at? In a conversation we had a little while ago, you mentioned some interesting um, ideas that I'd never really thought of before. So, what other things can people sort of look at if they want to hold an event where they bring people together, but maybe it's not something quite like this?
Yeah, sure. Virtual events take all shapes and sizes. It could be something like a webinar, whether it's a
Mm-hmm.
sales webinar or strictly an informational webinar. And it could be a full blown conference like this, in case this is a 2 day conference. And
Mm-hmm.
there are multi day, multi track conferences, virtual, just like we've had in the physical space. For people who are running an MRR business, events are a really great way to engage your current customers and your broader audience pool of people who could be your customers and help them both recognize the service that you're providing as well as do better in their own businesses. So webinars are great for this, and they've been used for years.
Mm-hmm.
But you could also do um, even just asynchronous style events. Perhaps you are doing a webinar that you pre-recorded and you have replays available so that people can come to your website and see how features were demonstrated to learn how your tool can be used in a different scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe you have completely synchronous things where instead of doing a webinar, you're doing one-on-one or one-to-many trainings with your audience. So this is something that I've offered off and on through WPSessions is private training. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess a little tiny bit of background about me. So I run WPSessions, which is a training platform for people who use WordPress in their business. It talks about things related to WordPress development, but also design, general business practices. It runs the gamut. Um, there are tons of teams that have varying levels of experience within the team who are looking to learn new things. And I recognized this when I was in an agency, and then when I left that agency, uh, I worked in several agencies. All of them basically have this problem of like, well, some people know this, some people don't. How do we get everybody on the same page? How do we keep growing together instead of growing apart? And
Mm-hmm.
I realized private training is a really great way to do this. In this case, can come in and meet with the team, figure out where people are at, propose a curriculum, and say, all right, well, we're going to meet every other week for an hour,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll talk about this topic. And then in 2 weeks, we'll talk about this topic. And in the weeks in between, we can check in and make sure that the curriculum still matches with what you need to know when you need to know it. And so it can
Right.
either be for like just in time learning or ongoing stuff. And I piloted that with a few agencies and they loved it. It was great because they got very catered training for what they were looking to do. And it was very easy for me because most agencies need similar stuff. So I could take presentations that I've already made, tweak them, 10, 15, 20% from what they were to fit
Mm-hmm.
the specific needs of the team and answer their personalized questions in real time. And boom, suddenly they know, how to interact with the WordPress REST API or how to
Yeah.
do um, whatever it is that they needed to learn. And then it can take all kinds of other forms in between. So I mentioned we've talked about conferences and webinars. We've talked about just now um, private events for a select audience.
Mhm.
And then I mentioned not just instructional on how to use your tool, but also instructional in a particular niche or industry. One tool that I use is called Ecamm Live, and the developers of that host webinars. I don't know if they're weekly or every other weekly, but multiple times per month, they're bringing in people who do streaming for a living to talk about how they're running their streaming business. And then it's just like,
Mhm.
oh, by the way, we have Ecamm Live and it's great and it can do some of these things really easily, but here's how to think about the broader picture of what you're trying to do with the tool. And so
Mhm.
it's a really great move because it takes someone like me who is perhaps using maybe 10% of the possible feature sets. I watch one of these webinars and go, oh, wow, that's a really great thing for me to implement. And I become even more in love, I fall even more in love with the tool. And it takes
Right.
someone who's completely outside the industry and goes, oh, I guess I could do this. This seems very approachable now.
Yeah. So just everyone who's out there watching, if you have any questions for Brian about anything that we're talking about right now, make sure you use the ask a question area in the chat to drop those in, and I will be grabbing those in real time. My next question is, you've already given so much value and information, just what we've just said, but I think we should kind of maybe go back a little bit and touch on what is the recurring aspect of something like this, right? So I think a lot of people think of an event as you plan the event, you maybe sell tickets or registration for the event, and you do the event, and then the event is over. But what are the things that we plan for at the beginning of the planning stages of an event to make sure that this is something that we are getting recurring revenue from? What are those aspects and how do we plan for those?
Yeah, perfect. So I'll talk about this first in the context of how I run WP sessions, and then probably more broadly for people who don't want to create a membership based training website, because that's not what we're here for. It's how can you take this and apply it to yours? So in my
Right.
business, I'm hosting a monthly webinar, or I used to host a monthly webinar. So every month I'm bringing in a new expert and they're
Mm-hmm.
providing training on something. And then if you come live, you can watch it for free. If you want to watch the recording or access the other 180 hours worth of presentations that are in the library, you become a member. And
Yeah.
the free events continue to drive more people to become members. And then the members
Mm-hmm.
are my recurring revenue, and it's pretty predictable. Like if I keep producing content, people will keep finding me and keep giving me money, and then I can
Right.
chart out all of the revenues and margin and all of that to say, is this a healthy business or am I losing money or breaking even or what? Um,
Right.
and uh, this year and last year for a bit, I switched away from doing an event every month to doing larger conferences. So I run
Mm-hmm.
WordSesh and WooSesh. This year, WordSesh was 3 regional events. So I had one
Mm-hmm.
for the Americas, one for Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and one for Asia Pacific. And so it could be timed for those people. And then I spread those out. And then WooSesh is still coming in October. If you do anything with WooCommerce, go to woosesh.com later. Check that out. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that so I have essentially an event every quarter, and I
Mm-hmm.
plan my time around that, and the revenue spikes around those happening. So it's not exactly a nice even spread of monthly recurring revenue, but I host an event,
Mm-hmm.
tons more people find me, they sign up, and then that builds the monthly recurring revenue on my membership
Right.
site. For those of you who have existing businesses doing something else, or you're looking to start a business that generates monthly recurring revenue that's not a training site, and I recommend taking these principles and bringing them to that rather than just making another training site, because we could get into that in a lot of detail. But nevertheless, the webinar format of hosting a regular event to bring people into your service is a form of marketing, right? So if you think about
Yeah.
events as marketing in that sense, building out sort of your own private media empire to broadcast things to people is a really uh, measurable way to say, like, all right, well, we've been doing webinars for 3 months. How has that impacted our sign up rate? Oh, okay,
Mm-hmm.
not great. Maybe we need to tweak this. Maybe we need to be a little bit more clearer in our ask at the end of the webinar or in the middle, or however that works. Um, or Let's say you are offering a business that does uh, testing of services.
Mhm.
Um, Robot Ninja was one that I loved that would test a
Mm.
WooCommerce site beginning to end. You tell it what your site is, you tell it what product you want, how much it costs, you give it some seed money, and then every day or a few times a day or whatever interval you set up, it would go to your website, buy the product as a guest, make sure that the entire workflow worked,
Wow.
refund that, do it again as a registered user, make sure the entire workflow works. And if it failed, I had it send me an email at 10 a.m. Every day, like, uh-oh, there's something wrong with the site. Let's fix this. So let's say you're building a service like that that's either doing exactly that or it's doing something else, right? To a website health lookup, an uptime monitoring, whatever. Um,
Mhm.
you could use virtual events as a way to engage with your existing customers and show them how to better utilize the tool, to give them training on how they could use the tool for their clients and offer better
Mhm.
client services. Um, any number of things there to help retain customers. And then you could have virtual events like webinars to bring more customers in the door. And like I said, we just walked through that whole thing for that as a marketing channel and testing it the same way you would test for paid traffic or other organic measures.
Right. Love that. All right, let's go to the next question. What are some tips that you might have for planning and strategizing the follow-up portion of a virtual event? So once it's all said and done, any sort of outreach, like you were talking about, really the marketing of making sure that this is something that is that doesn't just kind of fade into the background, but is consistently marketed to people.
Yes, that is super important. And you saying that reminds me that I didn't quite answer part of your question, which is like how do you set up the planning for running these events,
Right.
right? So
Mhm.
ideally, you're only hosting an event if you have a desired outcome, right? So you think
Mhm.
about what your desired outcome is, and then work backwards from there. And this is also how I largely organize events. Like for a large conference, I think like, okay, so for the event to be a success during the day, we need to have speakers and attendees, and in my case, sponsors. All right, so I've got to make sure that I'm reaching out to each of those audiences separately to make sure that they're there. What's the content need to be? Because this is
Mhm.
really an event for the audience. So let me think through that. If we're talking about a single webinar, same deal, right? Like what I want more customers. So
Mhm.
therefore, I need to put this in front of my prospective customers and I need
Right.
to put out something that they want, not what I want. So thinking about the learner first. What do they
Right.
need to learn? What can you provide to them that is going to benefit their business? One of
Mhm.
my favorite adages to repeat is that people don't buy drill bits. Like they don't buy a half-inch drill bit. They're buying a half-inch hole. That's what they want. Your tool gets them that. They
Right.
don't care about the drill bit or anything else. They're like, can this get me what I want? It can.
Right.
Perfect. Let me use that. And so our services, our tools are the same thing, right? Nobody wants an email newsletter platform. They want to be able to communicate with their audience in as
Mhm.
few steps as possible. And an email marketing platform is one of the tools that they can use to do that.
Right.
So think about the learner and what they need, then prepare material that will benefit them the most. Ideally, that also coincides with whatever it is that you're doing. So if we go back to our example of like the uptime monitoring or the performance testing, whatever tool that you make, people probably in that niche care about making sure their website is online. So let's talk about the how much it costs for that to be offline. Let's talk about
Mhm.
things they can do to improve their uptime, right? Your tool is just
Right.
telling them, is it up or not? Well, let's talk about how we can fix those problems so that your tool is always telling them that it's online. People would
Mhm.
love a webinar like that, right? All right, so we're planning on what does the learner need? How do we get them that? Perfect. Let's work backwards. How long does it take to prepare that material? Okay, good. Um, how long should we start promoting this to make sure we have an audience? I recommend as you're
Mhm.
getting started that you want for a webinar at least 2 weeks, up to 4 weeks, so that people can get it on their calendar and make time for it.
Mhm.
For a conference, you probably want about 12 weeks. More than that is good, but people kind of start to forget things. So there's the pre planning of like working backwards to make sure that you're promoting things and thinking of your desired outcome and the
Mhm.
learner's path so that you both get to there. And then for the follow-up part is crucial. I am terrible at this part, so I can talk about all the ways that I get it wrong, and I know that I'm getting it wrong because I see other people doing it right and it resonates. So the worst thing you can do is put all this effort into an event and be like, all right, everybody, we're done. Peace out. Goodbye. And not
Mhm.
talk to them again. Like, at
Yeah.
minimum, you should send them a follow up email later that day or the next day,
Mhm.
no later than 48 hours later. You want to reach out and say, so glad you came. Here's what we talked about. Here's an access to the recording if you're giving them that.
Mhm.
Here's access to the slides if you're giving them those. Uh, and here's a survey if that's something that you want, right? Like, just two questions: what did you like? How could this be better? Or a third question: what else could we do to help you succeed? Right, really simple, making it as easy as possible for people to engage with you when the event is
Mhm.
over. Uh, if the purpose of the event was sales, for sure, you need to ask for that sale. Hans talked about this beautifully yesterday,
Yesterday, yeah.
uh, and how to better ask for the sale, how to better interact with your customers to make sure that you can make that sale, which is a great thing to do because ideally you've built something that genuinely helps people. It is in their best interest to know about it. So you should
Mhm.
make sure they know about it and say, hey, we're so glad you came to this webinar. Or if they missed, also send them an email. Sorry, we missed you yesterday. Here's the replay. Here's a recap of what you missed. And by
Mhm.
the way, you'll see at the end of the video, there's this offer here. That's going to be good for you too because you at least signed up. So click this link, learn more, sign up, etc. And then ideally, you have more than one follow up. So you get them right after the event is done. And then a couple days pass. You say, hey, just following up here. Hope you enjoyed stuff. Want to see if you have any more questions. Just hit reply.
Mhm.
I'm here if you need anything.
Mhm.
Works out pretty well.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I think we have time for one more question that actually just came into the chat. Stephen asks, what tools do you use to do your webinars? Now, I know you have quite a few tools and quite a bit of equipment. So maybe let's move from what do you think the three most important tools or resources are that someone should have if they're getting started with something like this? And then maybe let's end with taking a peek at your setup and your set of equipment as somebody who does this kind of full time for a living.
Cool. All right. Yeah. So most important thing, without a doubt, is audio. People will tolerate bad video. People don't even need to
Mm-hmm.
see video, but if you have bad audio, they're gone. So
Mm-hmm.
essential, most important thing is good audio. This does not mean you need to go out and spend hundreds of dollars on a microphone and audio cabling. You can get away with just using AirPods or wired Apple headphones or whatever headphones you have that have a mic built in. They're not the
Mm-hmm.
best, but you can take those and make them viable. Particularly if you have one on a cord, like hold it away from your face so it's not rubbing on your face or on your clothing. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
sit hunched over for just that moment, not all the time because it will ruin your back, but just long enough so that that mic is dangling and not touching other things, picking up all of that other sound. And then adding things to your room to soften the sound. Uh, by example, Allie has a bunch of paneling behind her to absorb some of that echo that would otherwise resonate off the wall and come back into the microphone. That's a great thing to do. I know that she has, but we can't see when she's doing recording, additional paneling that comes in right between her and the microphone and blocks off any sound from getting outside of that, making just like a really tiny recording studio, which you could also do
Mm-hmm.
with a really heavy blanket, just pulling it over your head and your
Mm-hmm.
microphone. So good audio is a must. Buying a dedicated microphone helps a ton. Learning how that microphone works, because every microphone is different, is even better. Getting it just a few inches from your face, like 4 inches or about a hand away, either way you want to do it, is usually the optimal distance for most microphones. You get closer than that, you're blowing out the sound. If you're too far away, it starts picking up other ambient noises. So I'm putting all of my time into this one thing because this is probably the most important thing to having the event that people actually want to be in. Next most important, um, for tooling is some means of streaming what you're doing out to your audience. I've
Okay.
used crowdcast.io for a number of years. It's amazing. We are using OBS behind the scenes to stream this, and this is streaming to Vimeo Live. I love this absolutely so much. It's amazing. Ecamm Live is a tool that I mentioned earlier. That's also brilliant. It's like OBS, but really user-friendly. And then probably a last one would be just thinking through your slide design. It's not really a tool, but it is. So making
Mhm.
sure that your slides are on point for what messaging you're trying to get across.
Yeah.
Whew, that was a mouthful. And
Wonderful.
then,
I love it.
yeah, folks wanted to see a sneak peek behind the scenes, right? We're probably running out of time, though. Let me check that.
How are we for time?
Let's see, 11:55. Oh, we're good. We're good.
We're good? Okay.
We got some time. So let's see what's gonna be the easiest way to do this. Well, I can switch to my phone,
Sure.
and let me see what that looks like in our
There's
preview here.
me.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to back way up. So I'm looking at everyone through my teleprompter here. So right now I'm looking at Allie, so it's like I'm actually talking to her. My camera, in case you've never seen a teleprompter before, is right on the other side of that. The screen feeding my teleprompter is just an iPad, which is hooked up to my computer as a third monitor. Nothing fancy going on with the iPad, it's just an extra display that's small enough to fit in my teleprompter. My mic is just off frame here, so my audio is getting worse as I'm moving away from it. And then if we pan this way, so these two monitors are the computer that's running the stream. So here's OBS where I'm monitoring a preview and the actual output. Over here, I'm monitoring things as they're going out to the world. We've got the schedule, like everything I need to see as it's going on. Down below here, so this is actual live. I'm experiencing things just like an audience member does to make sure that we haven't lost the stream at all. And you can see that we have about a 20-second delay from real time. And then over here is an iPad that I have set up just as an additional input. So I have Zoom running on this, and Allie's video is pinned, which is how we are getting Allie here. And even though we're going back and forth talking in Zoom, she's up. And then I also have Zoom over here. And her video is pinned here because my camera is the other input source. But normally, this one would be Allie, and this one would be our guest speaker. But I'm the guest speaker, and I have my camera plugged into this big crazy rig, so that makes it easy. And then down here, I have this wonderful device called a Stream Deck. So this allows me to program a bunch of buttons and control a bunch of things, and I've got a few different scenes. So these are all the buttons I need to run today's show, to go through each of our different speakers, to go to the break loop, to key up other things. These buttons are to control my lighting. I have a light outside of my office that turns red when I'm recording to tell my family to stay out and be quiet, except it has the precise opposite effect for my children. They tend to flock into my office when they see that it's red, so it's kind of counterproductive. And then super important, this one is my microphone button. You can see that it's red. It's open so people can hear me. And if I turn it off, you wouldn't be able to hear me. And that gives me a nice visual indicator if my mic is live or not, which is really handy. And then we've got fun like sound effect things, but I'm not going to get into those. And then the lighting. So let me pull myself back up for a hot second. So my lighting here, I'm extremely well lit from this side. So this is the brightest source. So it is therefore my key light, my main light. Over here, this would be the fill light. So you can see that I'm not in shadow. And then behind me, I have a rim light. So you can see my hair and my shoulders to separate me from the background. Let me turn off some of this lighting. So I basically start to disappear when that's gone. And to bring that back, so we can see once again, so that helps separate me from the background, I kind of glossed right over this, so let me bring up my handy dandy camera. So this monitor is my key light. This is bright enough to light the left half of my face. And then my fill light is this giant piece of poster board, which I need to back up so that you can see, just hanging right off frame. And that is catching the light, which is right behind me. Let me angle this correctly. So I have just a single bare LED bulb hanging up here in my ceiling joist. That's creating the rim light around me and then bouncing off of the big old thing, a poster board, to then create this whole ensemble. And
Pretty
you probably,
incredible.
yeah. So a lot of different tools going on in this setup that I
So
accumulated over a long period of
I,
time.
I should say, if you out there watching this would like to start any sort of virtual event or webinars or anything like that, you don't need all of this stuff. Brian has all of this
Fact.
stuff because this is what he does for a living. So please do not feel like intimidated or anything. Like I feel a little bit intimidated. But yeah, this is what you invest in when you do this for a living. But at the same time, there are people who can put on comparable events with the basics. So I just kind
Yeah.
of wanted to preface that so we're not telling people like you need all of this stuff in order to be successful.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
want to underscore that. Yeah.
the chat is blowing up. People are so amazed and impressed by what you have set up. So how long did it take you to kind of compile all of this? Because I assume you didn't just find all the stuff overnight and throw it all together and build your rig that way. Like how long did it take you, do you think, to
Correct.
really perfect your system?
So I've been running virtual events for 7 years, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
WPSessions started in 2013, and I was using Google Hangouts and the built-in microphone and built-in camera on my. Was I using an iMac at the time? I think I might have been using an iMac, or I was using a laptop, but I had a Thunderbolt display, which is the one that's still here on my desk. And I was using just the built-in mic and the built-in camera on whatever the machine was. And I did that for a long time. It's totally fine. And then I bought a nicer microphone, uh, and that improved things dramatically. That was also super useful because I was on conference calls all the time in my
Mm-hmm.
agency life, and that was always fun to join a client like, "Whoa, are you a radio DJ?" Like, well, sometimes I am. Uh, and so I added the microphone, and then I realized years later that I could use the DSLR that I already own because I was a professional photographer for a few years. I can just plug that in as a webcam. And so, bam, I have just a really high quality webcam. And with that, I needed some additional software, and that sent me spiraling out of control to find all of the other stuff. The Stream Deck that I was showing off there, all those buttons, I just added that this year, and wow, it's really, really handy for being able to key in all of the stuff. Uh, I wouldn't
Imagine.
need it just running my own webinar by myself. Those are pretty low key and easy to do. But running a full blown conference where I'm switching between multiple speakers and all kinds of different setups, being able to just press a single button instead of like, all right, let me click over here
Mm.
and do this. And they're like, okay, now we're ready. Everybody see the slides? Okay, good, let's go. Um, so yeah, you do not need all of this stuff. This was a slow roll over several years. And as you can see, my lighting rig is not actually a lighting rig. I'm using a computer monitor and a single light bulb bouncing off a white piece of poster board. Like you could get
Yeah.
this lighting rig for just a few dollars buying a light and a piece of poster board from your local craft store or hobby store or supermarket or
Yeah.
wherever poster board is sold.
Very MacGyver energy.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, Brian, thank you so much for the peek behind the curtain or in front of
My
the
pleasure.
curtain since you're sitting in front of the curtain. Um, I think maybe we have time for one more question. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. We got just a
Okay,
few more minutes.
we did get a flood of questions that just came in as we were going through this. So I'm just going to pick the one that came in first. From Anonymous, when doing a webinar, what are some things to do to attract viewers and partners to join it?
Mm.
So that's definitely kind of a marketing question, but what kind of success have you found with attracting viewers and attracting people to participate?
Yeah, I found my greatest success reaching out to people that I know. In the WordPress community where I operate, I am blessed to know lots of people, and I just started reaching out to them when I was thinking about doing this for the first time and said, hey, would you be interested in delivering a presentation on X, whatever topic I
Mm-hmm.
knew them to be an expert in? Um, In my case, I pay all of my speakers every time they present because I am getting paid by attendees, and I would feel wrong saying,
Mm,
"Hey, come and speak for free so I can make some money." So I pay all of my speakers, and I invite them and say, "You know this topic really well. I would love for you to share that with people in my audience. Could we
yeah.
schedule a time to make that work?" A personal invitation like that works wonders. People and oh man, I forgot an entire branch of virtual events. Podcasts are this.
Mm,
Podcasts are a great example in most cases of an asynchronous virtual event. You and your guest are usually live together recording,
yeah.
but your attendees, your audience, are listening later at whatever time is convenient to them. Some podcasts are
Mm,
also live. The Joe Rogan show is a famous example of this, probably the most famous one, where it's like, "Hey, come and watch us live," and then also you can watch the recordings later. Um,
mhm,
anyway, inviting people to a podcast is the same right. You invite someone personally, you butter them up and let them know, here's why I want to have you as a guest. And for the most part, as long as you're reasonable and have a decent timeline, you are probably going to find a decent amount of success of people saying, like, "I would love to. Could we do it at this point in time?" And you say yes or no. How about this other point in time? Getting attendees is a bit more challenging. Ideally, you have an audience, but if you don't have an audience, right, if you're starting from zero, you just start reaching out to the people that you know. So start telling if you're in a meetup group, right, tell the people that you meet up with,
mm,
"Hey, I'm going to do this thing. I think you people would be interested in this. Come and join us."
mhm,
And you slowly build interest over time that way. If you
yeah.
take my advice and start 2 to 4 weeks out for, say, a webinar, that gives you a lot of time to focus on sending out emails to people that you know, putting it out on Twitter or Facebook or wherever you are. And that tends to work pretty well.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap up and start getting ready for the next session. But Brian, thank you so much for hopping in and providing all of this amazing value. Where can people find you if they have more questions
Yeah.
about virtual events?
Sure. So it's been my pleasure. People can find me on Twitter. My handle is Risen and spelled RZEN. Or risen.net is my personal site where there's not much stuff, but that links out to everything else like WPSessions.com or WordSesh.com and WooSesh.com, the two conferences that I
Mhm.
mentioned. I also spun up a site earlier this year that I haven't done much with yet called RunVirtualEvents.com, which I
Mhm.
probably should have plugged earlier than right now. But that's another place that people can go and find some things that I'm doing.
Awesome.